Still, President George Herbert Walker Bush is to be credited with working within the United Nations, organizing a vast coalition to expel Iraq, but most important, I think, resisting the pressure to invade Iraq and depose Saddam Hussein, which was not authorized by any of the many mandates approved by the Security Council. The first President Bush was wise in this respect. According to Bill Kristol, who is a conservative American columnist who writes for the New York Times, among other publications, the Second Gulf War was about changing the political dynamics in the Middle East. But Wilson wisely explained this can mean different things to different people. And he has no doubt that to Vice President Dick Cheney, oil, in fact, played a major role in the Second Gulf War. It was also more of a commercial play for Cheney's friends than anything else, since according to my friend Joe, Cheney is about as corrupt as the summer days are long. But Bush and Cheney also felt ousting Saddam would result in cheaper prices at the pump, and they failed at that, and strategically control the pump to control the pace of development and adverse political behavior in China and Iran. And of course, Washington has failed at that too, since both the Saudis and Iranians now sign many more contracts with China than they do with the United States. My friend Eason Jordan, who was the former chief news executive of CNN, has a different view. He thinks Bush genuinely believed Saddam had weapons of mass destruction and supported international terrorists. But Eason told me he was confident had September 11th never happened, neither would the Second Gulf War. I personally disagree, because there were too many of my colleagues who swallowed the administration's propaganda, confused patriotism with journalism, and actually helped fuel the march to war. And furthermore, we now know today that even before George Bush was appointed President of the United States by the Supreme Court, he and other right-wing ideologues planned to topple the regime in Baghdad, even if the United States were not attacked. As it turned out, the terrible attacks on New York and Washington turned out to be a convenient hook for the war, a hook, as I said, that the press swallowed completely. Before I close, I suppose I should make reference to the current presidential campaign now in the United States. I personally firmly support Barack Obama, and were I in better health, would probably be working for him today. If he's elected president, I believe Senator Obama will work vigorously to find alternative energy sources and reduce our dependence on foreign oil. But Hillary Clinton will stop at nothing, even destroying the Democratic Party if necessary, to stop Obama from gaining the nomination, which I think Obama will. But in the meantime, all this infighting has been great news for John McCain. And believe me, John McCain makes Dick Cheney look like Gandhi. I always thought the worst possible scenario we could face in the United States would be if John McCain, along with his vice presidential candidate Condoleezza Rice, actually won the general election in November. But recently, someone pointed out an even worse possibility. Consider this. John McCain and Condoleezza Rice stand for election and are elected. And soon afterward, McCain, who is now in his 70s, suffers a fatal heart attack, leaving Condoleezza Rice as the new President of the United States. A short while later, Ms. Rice, who is never married, reveals to everyone her true sexual orientation and marries Hillary Clinton. So please, dear friends, I ask you to pray for us. Thank you very much.